Hampshire voters headed to the polls this morning. Big day, participating in the first of the nation primary election. Republican voters deciding between former President Donald Trump and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Both candidates making their final appeal to voters last night. Watch.
Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That is nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But the only way we're going to do that is if we elect a new generational conservative leader.
When you step into that voting booth, you're going to be signaling that we want crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country. We got to get him out. His radical left lunatics, the entire sick political establishment in our nation's capital. We're going to do things, and we're going to do things right. We're going to bring our country back with your vote.
Joining me right now is the former governor of Arkansas, former presidential candidate himself, Mike Huckabee. Mike, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Your reaction to what you're hearing from these candidates and what you're expecting out of New Hampshire.
What you just played is the reason Donald Trump is 50 points ahead. He's blunt. He's clear. Nobody doubts what his message is. And quite frankly, he's taking the message straight to the whole deep state of D.C., and people want that. What Nikki Haley was offering was, I'm going to return us back to a time when Republicans could go and sip wine and nibble cheese with the best of them in the Georgetown parties. And that's just not what the rank-and-file Republicans want anymore. It's why our money is coming largely from Democrat donors, never-Trumpers, and people who miss the good old glory days of the Republicans when they were globalist. Well, those days are gone.
You also
so
see
I think it's going to be an epic confrontation tonight. It really is.
Epic for sure. You see a number of senators jumping on the Trump train. He was joined on stage last night by former opponents who endorsed him after dropping out, including South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, and Vivek Ramaswamy. Their appearance meant to be seen as a show of force, I guess, that the Republican Party is united and ready to take on Joe Biden. But the truth is we're not seeing an overall unity within the party yet, are we?
We're getting there. I mean, the fact that most of the people who ran against Trump have now come on side and said, I'm with him, I'm endorsing him, they're on stage with him. And what's interesting is some of them are the top politicians from South Carolina, where Nikki Haley hails, and where she goes right after New Hampshire. Her bigger problem is what really Ron DeSantis faced in Iowa. If he didn't exceed expectations there, he knew he really didn't have a path forward. Nikki Haley has predicted, as has Governor Sununu in New Hampshire, that she's going to win, and she's going to, just launch a big one from here. I think if she doesn't, if she's not within really close enough distance to have Donald Trump feeling the breath of her on his neck, then quite frankly, I think even if she continues on, I don't see a pathway, because it's not going to go that well for her in South Carolina, according to all the polls that are showing, and the fact that virtually the entire leadership of the state, her home state, is not with her on this.
And it's interesting what you say, because it's a similar commentary that I heard from two pollsters on Sunday, Mark Penn and Robert Cahaley from Trafalgar Group. Watch this.
Our thought is that if Haley doesn't get within 4 or 5, to get very close, that she's just not viable anymore, and she can't risk coming into her home state and getting beat soundly. That's the kind of stuff political obituaries are made of.
If she really needs to get momentum out of New Hampshire, get within 20 in South Carolina, and have a campaign, and if neither of these things happen, Donald Trump's going to be the nominee come next week.
So, I mean, the electorate in New Hampshire is more of an independent as opposed to GOP. Would you agree with that or no?
Oh, absolutely. And even the Republican mainstay of New Hampshire is really almost more libertarian than classic Republican. But they are very opinionated. They're great people. I love the people of New Hampshire. I didn't win there, but I had a great time campaigning there, because I just found the people to be refreshingly blunt and honest about everything.
I love it.
So I think it's a tough situation for Nikki Haley, because it really isn't the Republican environment of New Hampshire that she would normally thrive in.
Yeah.
It's not as much an establishment place as it is pro-Second Amendment, pro-liberty. I mean, heck, their state motto is live free or die, for heaven's sake. So
That's right.
it's pretty evident that these are independent people.
I love it. Mike, let me get your take on Trump's running mate, if in fact that's where we're going here. A couple of weeks ago, the former president told Fox News, I know who it is. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but here's a list of some of the names being floated as a contender for Trump's vice president, should he secure that nomination. New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, your daughter. Governor, your daughter was asked about it on Sunday. Here's what she said. Watch.
And you'd be open to vetting to be his vice president, potentially?
Look, I absolutely love the job I have. I think it's one of the best jobs I could ever ask for, and I am honored to serve as governor, and I hope I get to do it for the next 7 years.
And she's doing a great job there. You must be very proud. But what about Trump's VP? Mike, who do you think it is?
I don't know. And he'll keep it close to the vest. He'll make a great choice. Every person you had up on that screen would be excellent. He's got a good bench to choose from. But I think Sarah was right that she's loving the job of governor. It is the best job in politics. And I know she wants to be there for a longer time. She's only been in office a year, gotten some great stuff done. So, you know, I don't know that no one ever says they want to be vice president, but nobody ever turns it down. So there you go.
What, if anything, can derail Trump's winning streak here?
I think the only thing that could hurt him is Trump. If he stays in the direction he's going, and you know, the last several speeches that he's done in interviews, he has been so focused on what he wants to do for America. It's not been a look in the rearview mirror. It's a look through the windshield.
Yeah.
And as he stays that course, I think he's unbeatable.
All right, Governor, great to talk with you this morning. We so appreciate your time.